Okay, so we've got me, Arden Compton, with Nancy Gay Compton Wilson, and she's going to tell us some of her life stories. So I guess go ahead, Nancy. If you want me to give you any prompts or questions to help you drum up some memories, let me know, but we'll just see what falls out of your mouth first.
That's a good way to say it. Let's see. I was born on January 7th, 1948 in St. Elizabeth Hospital in Yakima, Washington. But mom and dad were living in Toppenish.
How close are Toppenish and Yakima?
Oh, just 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
They're not very far. 15,
All right.
Maybe. 10 minutes, most likely. Anyway, it's not very far. I've been there and been there with Kamillia and Marcielle and with mom and dad when they came out one year. And and my memory is that while we were living there, and I was very small, but I really don't. Mother said I was about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years old. I remember the neighbor giving us juicy fruit gum and a banana. She lived around the corner. I remember sitting on the sidewalk, and mother said that she was an Indian that lived around the corner and evidently gave treats to the kids sometimes. Marcielle told me that someone gave me, when I was about 3 months old, someone gave me a piece of hardtack candy, and I choked on it and was turning blue, and mother went running. There was a neighbor who was a nurse that lived down the road a little ways, and mother went running out of the house yelling, "Somebody get Mrs. whatever her name was," and I don't remember what it was. Anyway, in grabbing me, she accidentally did the Heimlich maneuver, and I coughed it up.
There you go.
But when I heard that story, I thought to myself, I've always hated taking vitamins, and I've never been able to take more than one at a time.
Oh.
Or pills. And so I thought, and I would always gag on them. I wondered if that was kind of a,
That could have set the stage for that, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so then I remember being in Yakima. I don't remember how old I was when we moved to Yakima. I remember the cherry tree that everybody's talked about in the backyard. And I do remember Jaye and I trying to jump out of that tree and fly like Superman. we would jump off of the couch and try to fly. We tried to fly a lot. Anyway, my dress caught on the tree, on the branch, and I just hung there with my breath knocked out of me. And I knew that Marcielle and Kamillia were out there. I thought there were some sheets hanging on the line so nobody could see me but Jaye. Eventually I fell on my nose, and my nose was bleeding and I was crying. So that was an experience that I remember. I remember that it was Christmas, and mother had hidden, I believe it was a new white shirt for either Bruce or Terry, because they were becoming deacons or needed a white shirt for Sunday. And I think Jaye and I saw it, and we told everybody what they were getting for Christmas.
So you are 3 years younger than Afton? Is that right?
3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah. I remember, and I remember.
And how much younger than you is Jaye? Remind me.
He's 1.5 years.
So Jaye's 1 year, and just so you guys are, that's the distance between me and Loretta. We're 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, okay, all right.
I remember I knew that mother was sick and Marcielle was sick. It seemed, and I think that it was in the house in Yakima, that I remember Grandma Chandler coming. It just seemed like everybody was sad and that nobody in the house felt good. That everything was just kind of in a sleepy haze in my memory at that particular time. And I didn't know what was wrong. Of course, I was so young, but I just have, and the Grandma Chandler wasn't real happy in my memory.
And so you're how old in this memory? Up 2, 3, 4, or what?
I must have been about 4, maybe
Okay.
5.
Okay.
I remember deciding one day that I was going to run away from home. I told Mom I wanted to help her with the dishes. So she got a chair and got me up to the sink to start helping. And then I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. And she told me, no, I needed to stay and finish helping because I started a job. I needed to finish the job. So I was about 4.
Okay.
And that made me unhappy. So I got my pajamas and put them in a brown paper bag and decided to run away.
Okay.
And I've been back there, and the driveway seemed like such a long driveway. It's such a short driveway now. And I walked probably down as far as the next house and thought, this is just too far. This is going to be too hard.
It's gonna be harder than doing the dishes.
I remember that Marcielle, Kamillia, Afton, and I all slept in the same bed. So there
really?
were often feet in my face when I woke up. And I remember one morning I was still in bed and I could hear everybody downstairs getting ready for family prayer and for breakfast. But I knew that we didn't have any Raisin Bran. And I wanted cereal that had raisins in it. And I didn't want to get up and go eat breakfast. I think Raisin Bran must have been kind of a new thing at that time.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. But anyway, I didn't want to go down because I knew I wasn't going to get to have any Raisin Bran. So such a silly thing. But that's the way little kids are.
Yeah.
And I do remember when the house caught on fire, I thought it was because.
And you were living where when the house caught on fire?
In Yakima.
Yakima. Okay.
Yeah, we lived on Chestnut Street. And I thought it was because somebody had put too big of a log in the fireplace. And of course, the other kids have expressed their experience with that fire. But I do remember someone wrapping a blanket around me and going over to the neighbor's house and watching the fire trucks in front of the house when we had that fire, and all of us having to get out of the house. I remember Carmon dating Kamillia. There was a vent upstairs that when you looked through that vent, you could see the mirror on the mantle. It was a big mirror, and Kamillia and Carmon would be standing in front of it, so you could see what they were doing if you looked in the mirror.
Okay.
And Jaye and I would make silly noises and chant silly little things about them kissing each other. Or
and you were so you were how old at that point?
Well, again, somewhere between 3 and 5, I'm guessing.
Okay, so still really little. Okay.
Not very big. And we thought that was pretty funny. And I remember Carmon, I had a loose tooth, so I must have been about 5. I had a loose tooth, and Carmon told me that he would pull it for me. He would tie a string to my tooth and a string to the door, and then he would slam the door shut and my tooth would come out. I don't think I let him do that. And he used to tell Jaye and I that he had dogs in the trunk of his car that were dangerous, that would get us. I guess that was a good way to frighten us.
This is interesting. From my vantage point, you all seem so much close to the same age. I don't think of you being that much younger than Kamillia, but obviously you must have been. And that's just, when you said you remember Kamillia dating Carmon, I'm thinking, oh, you were probably 12 or something, but no, you were much younger.
Yeah, she's at least 10 years older than I am, I think, maybe years older.
Yeah.
Because she met Carmon in Toppenish. No. Yeah, it was Toppenish. She met Carmon in Toppenish and she was 12. And that's where I was born. We lived in Toppenish when I was born. Went back to Toppenish a number of years ago with Terry. I went there with Kamillia and Marcielle, and Terry drove around and around and around trying to figure out where the Penny's store was, because that was where church was held, was up in the Penny store.
Okay.
And where we lived, and he thought he had found the place and where he went to school. Anyway, it was interesting to do that with him. When we moved from Yakima, we moved to, it was a pink and blue house, and it wasn't Dishman. I can't remember the name of the town. I know Marcielle and Kamillia have mentioned it. We didn't live there very long. Somehow, because of the job Dad had, he had gone and bought, I believe he bought this new house and new furniture, and it had a sunken living room, and there was more than one bathroom, and it was pretty exciting, and we had bunk beds for a little while. And that was the first time I saw Howdy Doody on TV. Dad bought us a new TV. Mickey Mouse was on TV, and we got to watch Mickey Mouse. And Uncle Kenneth came to see us, and he brought his youngest son with him, who was, I think he's a little bit older than I am. Teddy. He brought Teddy with him, and he chased Jaye and I around and around the house. He was good at playing with little kids. And
Okay.
he was keys. And it had rained the night before, and the garage door, there was a garage and a garage door, and the garage door had been up, and so it caught the rain and there was water on it. We ran to the garage, and he pulled it down to keep us from getting out, and the water came down and just covered him with water. We thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And in that house, I went to kindergarten, and my birthday is in January, so I think I was almost 6 when I was 5.5 when I started, at least. It was September, I turned 6 in January, so. And that was and I did have to ride a school bus, and I hated it. And I never wanted to go, and Mother.
Why did you hate it?
I think it was because it was new, it was different. I was familiar with going to church and being with other kids, but this was a whole different setting, and I didn't want to go. We had to take a blanket and lay down and take a nap. And I just remembered it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. That's all,
Okay.
I was nervous, afraid, and didn't really like it. Then we moved to Dishman and lived in that old farmhouse. And I went to first grade there, and I made friends. I had a friend who lived not far from us, and we would walk to school, and we were at that stage that we couldn't start talking about something without laughing. I remember people asking us why we were laughing so much and why it was so funny. And it was just, I don't think it was really nearly as funny as we thought. And there was, on the way to school, there was a man who had a little pony. And we would stop and feed that pony grass and talk to it. And he was nice to us. I remember walking either to or from school. I was by myself, and there had been snow, and the snow, it seemed like, was above my boots, almost to my knees. Of course, I'm not very tall. I wasn't very tall then,
Right.
but I just remember how hard it was to walk in that snow. And my teacher's name was Miss Brooks. And of course,
Okay.
there's a TV show later about our Miss Brooks. You probably never saw it. It was
No.
she was a high school teacher.
Okay.
But I remember that her name was Miss Brooks, and I loved and adored her. I just thought she was wonderful, and enjoyed school at that time. And I had a little kitten that I named Susie, and she followed me to school, only I didn't know she did. And she was run over by a car.
Oh.
And at that time, Marcielle was dating Ken. And when I got home from school, she was in a box, all broken up, but she was still alive.
Oh.
And mother asked Ken if he would shoot her, go put her out of her misery, because I don't even know if people took animals to the vet to put them out at that
Right.
time or not, but we never had the money to do that with any of our animals. But it broke my heart that Susie died. It was hard. And I do remember Marcielle, Ken being at our house a lot. I think that he was kind of going through a confused and difficult time at that time. And Dad invited him into our home after. And he did the same with Carmon. Carmon was having a hard time. At least that's the way I always pictured the story. And after that, Mom told Dad, don't bring home anybody else again. I remember at that time that one day everybody was talking about not drinking the milk because the milk was contaminated. I later found out it was because the contamination was on the grass that the cows were eating and that it was coming through in the milk. I don't remember that we didn't drink the milk, but I later learned that it was because of Hanford, and they were doing, it was right after the bomb in Japan, and they
what's Hanford?
Hanford is a nuclear power plant and research center.
Oh.
And so Hanford at that time was experimenting with nuclear power, and
okay.
They were shooting. I found out later that they were shooting radioactive material like 3 miles in the air, and then they would follow the pattern, and so it was going up towards Yakima and down towards Spokane and that area, and clear down into Weiser.
Really?
Yeah, it was it was just following and then it was falling on the ground, contaminating putting radioactive material on the ground, and the farmers were plowing it into their fields. And so for years there's been just a lot of brain, thyroid, breast, other kinds of cancers, which they have attributed to that.
So how far was this area from Weiser?
Well, Weiser is about...
Was Weiser like an hour car drive away, or 3 or 4 hours away, or do you know?
No, well, I'd have to look to be sure, but Boise is about almost 3 hours. So Weiser, you have to go a little bit to the east from Boise to get to Weiser. So it's about 2.5 hours from here. From Hanford, it was more like 3.
Well, no, from Toppenish and where you guys were living, how far was Weiser?
Oh, Weiser from Toppenish. Let's see, Toppenish is about 1.5 hours from here. So it would have been 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. So would have been a drive. Wasn't like you probably didn't make that drive often then.
I only remember in my memory one time going to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And I remember remember, so we must have done it more than once because I remember riding on a ferry across the Columbia River.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and I don't know why we would have crossed the Columbia River on a ferry unless it was to go see Grandma and Grandpa and to go to Weezer. And then I remember going over a bridge and sitting at the bottom of the car because we all were stuffed in the car. And so some of us were sitting on the floor, but I was scared about going across that bridge. And I'm guessing it's one of the bridges that crosses the Columbia River, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I remember standing next to Dad, or not very far from him, and he was fishing in a river. And I've often wondered, but he's not here to ask, if it was the Columbia River. It was very swift. And if it had been the Columbia River, it would have been a part of the Columbia River that where before the dam was completed.
Oh,
And I
okay.
really don't know for sure when the dam was completed, but it was pretty, well, in my memory, it was running pretty fast and hard. And the Columbia River had some pretty good places, but good fishing. When we lived in Dishman, I remember all of the kids, we didn't, there was a hill just down from us that was a good sledding hill. So in the wintertime, the kids would go sledding. And I remember Bruce or Terry taking me for a ride on that hill. It seemed like a long, long hill, but now that I'm older, I'm wondering if it wasn't very long at all.
That's so often the case with childhood memories.
Yes. And I remember that Bruce was raising rabbits, but then when it was time to kill them and eat them, I don't think any of us were very interested because they were more like pets.
Right.
And it was hard to want to eat them. And I remember that I was playing with some neighborhood kids in somebody's house and told them I would like to earn some money so I could buy some new shoes. And they decided to give me a job to do, and I helped fold clothes and scrub the bathroom. And then they took me to town and bought me some new shoes. And I wasn't very old, and I don't suppose I did a very good job. And I would be interested to know how Mom, that little presumptuous little girl, asking for a job at that time.
Okay. So, what was the name of the place where the bomb went off? Hannaford?
Hanford was where they did research for the bomb for the war.
Hanford, Hanford.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in Washington, Oregon.
No, that was in Washington. That's over by the Tri-Cities. It's by Richland, Washington.
Okay.
It's still there. And they've been trying to figure out what to do with their radioactive material since they've been shutting things down.
Right.
But evidently they were doing research and shooting that stuff in the air for quite a little while. And
Well,
since
didn't you say, oh, you froze up. Hello?
my computer has frozen. What did you
Okay.
say?
All right. Now I can see you. No, it seemed like another time you mentioned when you broke an arm and they took x-rays without being careful about the radiation from that. Was that in that same place, or where was that at?
That was in South Carolina. And
That was
there was a nuclear plant there that was doing the same thing, according to Terry.
Oh, okay.
So when I started having thyroid problems, well, finally, when we moved here, the doctors told me, because I was so young, when you're exposed to that radioactive material, your body absorbs it and it goes to your thyroid. and to your brain and other parts of your body. So it would have been more toxic to me than like later in life. Kamillia had a tumor on her thyroid.
Oh,
It was similar to mine, but that
okay.
was like 10, 15 years ago.
Oh,
But my tumor showed up when started growing when I was about 13. Or
really?
I had symptoms of thyroid problems when I was 13,
Wow.
12 and 13.
Did not know that. Huh. Okay.
So anyway, I do remember going to church, and Mother must have been at Relief Society, and the women must have been quilting, because I think all of us little kids were playing underneath the quilts. I just remember being there underneath the quilts, and don't really remember that much about it. I don't remember when Mom brought Chad home from the hospital, but I do remember that it was my job to rock his not a cradle, anyway, his bed back and forth until he would go to sleep. And it just seemed like it took forever for him to go to sleep. And I would slow down, hoping I could sneak out of the room, and then he would start fussing again. And
So you were the one, so you were rocking Chad to sleep?
yeah.
Okay. Oh, you froze up again. Hello, hello.
Sleep.
Okay, hang on. You froze up for about 10 seconds. I asked you if you were the one rocking him to sleep, but then you went all gargly.
It was a cradle that he was in, and I was just
Okay.
pushing back and forth so that and it squeaked. As soon as the squeaking stopped, he would wake up and start fussing.
Right.
I remember Annette being small and all of us going out to play in the snow. We had a lot of snow when we lived there. And she kept falling in the snow and getting cold. And I just remember her fussing. I remember Bruce decided to build an igloo in our front yard. And that was pretty fun and exciting to be involved in that. Because we did have a lot of snow when we lived there at that time. And it was just fun. Those were fun memories. Fun times. And I remember losing a tooth and sitting on Dad's lap, and he would bounce me on his knee, and he would sing, "All I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth." And I remember him playing the piano and playing those songs in that yellow children's book, the ones about Jumbo Elephant.
Right.
You remember
Yeah,
those?
I
And
do.
I'm the happiest child alive. I had a birthday and now I'm 5.
I don't remember that one. I do remember Jumbo the Elephant. I know there were other songs. I can't think of them right now.
Yeah, I have that book.
Oh, you have that book?
I do. Uh-huh.
I mean, the same book or a copy of that book?
Copy of that book. I don't have
Okay.
a book. It's a copy. Anyway, I used to sing those silly songs I remember being in front of him. I don't know if everybody else was there too or what. When I lost, he sang that song to me about all I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth. I don't remember Christmas in that house, but we must have had Christmas in that house. But I don't remember it. We left there right around my birthday, and we moved to Casey, South Carolina.
So you were how old when you moved to Casey?
I had just turned 7.
Oh, that young still.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We got to Casey, and Dad had a house that he had rented for us. And I remember that we were pretty excited because it had a stairway, a long stairway with a rail. And Jaye and I immediately went up there, climbed on that rail, and slid down the rail. And we got to the bottom and Dad was unhappy with us and gave us both a swat on the seat. Dad never spanked us. If we got a spanking, it was from Mother.
Oh, really?
She didn't do it very often.
Right.
She hated spankings. But that day he gave us a swat on the seat for being so disrespectful. It was an older house. And let's see, I was going into the second grade, in the middle of the second grade. Is that right? When we left there. And I was so sad to leave my friends when we left Yakima. And I was in the third grade, part of the third grade there anyway.
In Casey.
In Casey. And one morning, Mother told me before I went to school, I had to scrub the bathroom. And I didn't want to scrub the bathroom. And I left the house and she saw me leave and she yelled at me and told me to come back, that I had to scrub the bathroom. And so I came back and I scrubbed the bathroom, but I was going to be tardy. And so I didn't want to go to school, but she wouldn't write me an excuse because I didn't do what I was supposed to.
Right.
So there was a hill above the school and I spent most of the day on that hill because I was so embarrassed to go to school tardy.
Wow.
And then
So you never went to school, you just sat on the hill and then came home after school?
Yeah, and then came home. At that particular time, Elvis Presley was becoming very popular.
Okay.
And we didn't have a TV. We seldom, if we had a TV, it seldom worked. Okay. But we didn't have a TV. I think Dad had all of the furniture that he bought when we went to the new house. I think it was all repossessed. And we didn't get to take all that wonderful furniture with us. And we didn't get to keep the TV. So Elvis Presley was popular, and at recess on the playground, the girls would practice screaming and then fainting and falling into each other's arms because they were so excited about Elvis Presley. Evidently, they had seen pictures of people at his concerts and the girls fainting because he was so wonderful. And right then and there, I decided this is not for me. I thought it was so stupid. Such a young thing. And I was determined that I would never like Elvis Presley.
That is too funny. They practiced fainting just in case they had a chance to be there and so they would know how to faint.
They were in the third grade and just, yeah, I guess so.
Did you ever like any Elvis Presley music, or you never did like any of his music? Or do you know?
There were songs that I learned to like, but I was never a fan.
Right.
Elvis Presley, never his fan. We in South Carolina, you have all those vines and things that are growing, and we have a little creek in back, and we would grab one of those vines and swing back and forth across the creek and do a lot of exploring. And at that time, Jaye knew that he saw the abominable snowman. That he
in South Carolina, of all places.
I think they have a creature back there in their swamps, just like everybody thinks there's an abominable snowman.
Oh, so is it the abominable snowman or Sasquatch, or just the creature from the Black Lagoon, or? So the vines, when I was back in North Carolina, my mission, they called the vines kudzu. Does that sound familiar to you all? Do you know the name kudzu?
I don't remember what they were called. I just know that they were strong enough that you could
Yeah.
You could swing around on them. Yeah.
Kudzu was a vine growing thing, grow up and over trees and all over the place. So I'm guessing you were swinging on kudzu vines, but anyway, you don't know for sure.
I don't know for sure.
And
I'm
so,
sure I heard
so,
the name of them, but I don't remember it.
so go back to, so Jaye swore he saw the abominable snowman, and what came of that?
Well, nobody would believe him, but he was adamant that he saw this big white thing out by the neighbors. I think it was a huge grape arbor or something. And he was sure that he saw it. He stuck to that story for years and years. I don't know, maybe he still does.
He saw something anyway.
Yeah, he saw something. And that was a good thing to depend it on. Was the abominable snowman. We just had a lot of fun exploring in those woods and playing in that stream. And Dad would come home with dry ice. You know, he was in that freezer, Richfield freezer plan. If people bought a freezer, they got a freezer full of frozen vegetables or frozen food of some kind. And every once in a while, he'd come home with dry ice. We would take that dry ice and we would throw it in the stream. We have snakes that were prevalent there. I'm sure there were probably water moccasins and other things.
Yeah.
That dry ice would instantly just, and then if we picked them up, they would just break like pieces of glass. The snakes would.
Really?
Well, that's how I remember it. Somebody might correct me.
Wait a minute. So you threw the dry ice in the stream and snakes froze and you would break.
Well, if we pulled them out and dropped them, they would break.
Wow. Okay.
That's the way I remember it.
Okay.
Jaye may remember it differently, but that's what I remember about it.
Well, I've never done that before, so I guess I can't contradict you. I just am surprised that they would freeze so fast. Or how long did it take for that to happen?
It just seemed like it was, if there was a snake there when we threw it in, that was it for the snake. He was done.
Wow.
When it hit.
Okay.
So in South Carolina, we had some really, really bad thunderstorms.
Yeah.
Mother would run around unplugging the refrigerator, the stove, everything she could.
Yeah.
But this one time, and she knew that we were going to have a bad storm. She must have heard the weather reporters. Somehow she knew that there was going to be a storm. We stood at the back door and watched as that sheet of rain came towards the house.
Yeah.
Of course, you saw storms like that in North Carolina. They had the same thing in Maryland and Virginia. You just see that sheet. It's a sheet of rain. And we watched it coming towards the house, and it flooded right up to the back step.
Wow.
It came up to there. But the wind and the thunder and the lightning, I don't know where Dad was. He wasn't home with us. But those of us that were at home, and I don't remember Bruce and Terry being there, but they might have been. But we were on the couch, just snuggled up next to Mom, staying away from the windows. We could hear, there was a service station down the road, not very far. And we could hear the signs and things being blown off of the service station and down the road. We could hear them rolling down the road. And the thunder and the lightning and the wind was incredible. And it evidently was a hurricane, because we went to church the next morning and there were trees down everywhere, all the way to church that had been blown over. So it must have been a hurricane.
Well, I was going to say, I rode my bike on my mission in some storms like that, but I didn't never ride in a hurricane. But there, because part of my mission was in South Carolina, and the northern part of it. But I remember on my bike getting caught in some summer thunderstorms where we just got soaked. I mean, just through and through. We just had to ride our bikes home and change because it's like we jumped in the pond and went swimming or something. We were that wet. And when you're out on the bike and boom, it hits, there's just nothing you can do but get soaked.
Dennis had similar experiences in Chicago and Missouri. Just incredible storms that nearly blew their cars off of. They were on a dike and just nearly blew their car and flooded out their engine so that the car wouldn't run anymore.
Really?
It was wet underneath the engine, and yeah.
One day, this kind of, I know this is your story, but and this was outside of Morganton, North Carolina, but we went out. It was a mostly sunny day. There was one cloud in the sky, and it wasn't even a big black cloud. It was just a medium black cloud in the sky. And we said, oh, we're fine. We started riding our bikes, and that cloud drifted over us, and it just rained. I mean, it couldn't have rained more than in a half a mile square area, even if that big. And we just got soaked. I was like, are you kidding me? This cloud just came over us, and then it just kind of broke up and was gone. Then there's no more clouds left in the sky. It was a sunny day, and we're standing there soaking wet. So then we had to turn around and go back to it, which we were only like a mile from our apartment at that point. So we just turned around and went back and got changed. But yeah, those southern storms could be something, but I never, it was never a hurricane, at least that I know of. I don't think I ever was in one of those hurricanes. So that is something.
Well, somebody told me about that time that a big hurricane did go through there, but I do remember seeing trees that were just knocked over.
Yeah.
On our way to the next morning. When we lived in that house, we had Christmas. I don't remember much about Christmas except that Dad gave us all a little bit of money to go buy Christmas presents for him and for everybody in the family. And he went with us. And I remember that he convinced me I should buy a salt shaker for Mother and a pepper shaker for him.
Okay.
I don't remember what I bought for everybody else. I think I bought a whistle or something like that for Bruce. I mean, what we were buying were like nickel and dime things.
Right.
And I don't think we spent more than 50 cents and bought
right.
Christmas presents for everybody. But
right.
It was just interesting that he kind of helped us figure out what would be best for he and for Mom. Of course, we were so young too. I think I bought some lotion for somebody.
There were times when our kids were little and we would take them to DI and we'd give them each, a buck or two and say, go buy Christmas presents for all your siblings. And it would always be these stuffed animals that were 10 cents or a quarter or something like that. So, Christmas morning, everybody was giving everybody these little stuffed animals they got at DI. But they loved them and they were so excited about them. So it didn't bother them that they were only cost a dime or a quarter.
It's interesting, isn't it? The things that we do, just kind of funny. I was baptized when we lived in that house. Dad did not baptize me. He had somebody else baptize me.
So you were baptized in Casey, South Carolina?
Well, we went to church in Columbia, but we lived in Casey.
How do you spell Casey?
Cayce.
Okay.
We had a swing hanging from a tree in the yard, and I remember coming home swinging on that swing that Sunday and just feeling just clean all over.
Oh, you remember that?
I remember feeling really good, and it was fun. And then that day, or close to that, Jimmy Graham called me, and he was a talker. I have no idea what we talked about. I mean, I'm 8 years old.
Right.
And this boy calls me on the phone, and he called me a lot for the next 2 years. He was supposedly my boyfriend. And
Okay.
mom and dad became good friends with the Grahams and the Jensens. Donna, they had a daughter, whose name was Donna. What was her middle name? Donna Jensen. It was Mary Donna Jensen. And I think that was her mom's name too. And we just had a lot of fun with each other.
What was the name of the boy again?
Jimmy Graham. The Grahams were prominent people in the community and in the ward that we lived in. I think his dad was either in the bishopric or the state presidency. It
One of
it
those.
became a tragic situation, actually.
Oh,
His dad had been molesting at least one of his daughters, if not more,
oh,
and got excommunicated, and the family fell apart after
oh,
that.
that's sad.
It's really sad. But Jimmy seemed to be a really nice boy. We moved from there to Fort Bragg Boulevard, right across from the church and down
In Columbia?
uh-huh, and just down the street from Fort Bragg, and rented this little house. And so we were across the street from the church, so that was easy. It was a fairly busy road. And there was a little neighbor girl, and she came over, and without any of us knowing, she made a bunch of long distance phone calls. And mom and dad got this terrible phone bill. And
Wow.
we found that it was her and had to go talk to her mom and dad. We didn't live there very long, and we moved out on Suber Street. And we lived in a house that belonged to one of the Graham families.
Oh,
And it was a different Graham, but his wife came down with cancer and was going to die. And so he divorced her and built an apartment behind our house. There was just like a breezeway between where she lived and where we lived. And then he remarried, promising her he would have her sealed to him when she died. It's weird.
wait. His wife that got cancer, he said, I'll have you sealed to me after you die. So they weren't married in the temple.
Well, the closest temple was Salt Lake.
Right.
There were not very many people there that had been married in the temple.
And so he divorced her, but said, I'll have you sealed to me after you die.
And then he remarried.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of strange.
It was strange. And it was strange to us as kids. And we felt really sorry for her. She was very frail. Not many people came to see her. Mother would have us go over there, I think, to just take things to her and share things once in a while, but we hardly ever saw her. And I just felt really sad and bad for her. At that time, mom was excited because dad was making $400 a month.
Wow.
And she felt so relieved that now she had a regular income coming in. And she felt like was a beautiful gold rug. And I think she still had that rug when we lived in Spencerville in Maryland. That big
Okay.
gold rug. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
I think it was the same rug that she bought. And she was really excited about that. And I was in the 4th grade there, and I was on the school patrol. I don't know if you know what that is.
I'm thinking of like a cross guard or something like that.
Yeah, you got to help the kids cross the road. You got to kind of be a little police person kind of in the hallways before school started.
I have images of that. I never was, but I have images of people that were that in my mind from grade school. What did you call it? School patrol? Yeah.
I was a school patrol. I got to stand at the door until it was time for kids to go in. I got to go to school early. I was really focused on school. I would get up in the morning and I would get the cold cereal out and make orange juice so that we could all eat and have family prayer and eat and leave. And I really liked school at that time. And that's when I started playing the violin. And I loved playing the violin and loved doing that at that time of my life.
So hang on, let me back up a little bit. So you mentioned family prayer. Do you remember consistent family prayer growing up or not?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Every morning before everybody left, we had family prayer.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember it probably, no, I remember it in Yakima. I remember that one morning that I didn't go down for breakfast. I heard them have family prayer without me.
Okay.
So yeah, family prayer was pretty much, mother was adamant about family prayer. And she tried to be about family home evening, but I don't think dad took it too seriously.
I knew she was when I was, little and growing up. I knew family prayer was a regular, consistent thing. And most of the time, family home evening. I just you're just curious about when you were little.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it was important to her. So there, a neighbor, his name was Mike, and he was a terrible tease, but they had a tree house and it was fun to go climb in the tree house. And one of our neighbors had a teeter-totter. And at that time, I thought that I was a writer. And I was writing poems and writing plays. And I got all the kids that were my age and a little bit younger together. And we performed plays that I wrote for our parents. Isn't that amazing? I don't know that I'd ever do that again. I guess I was pretty cocky. Confident at that time anyway. And I had a lot of fun writing those plays. I wish I had a copy of them just to see what I did. But we went to one of our friends' house, and I remember mom coming. I don't remember if dad was there, but mother was there, and some of the kids in our family were there, probably Annette and Chad. And we put on these little plays for everybody. And mother had, we had chores we had to help with. And one of the chores was ironing pillow slips, hankies, simple things that nobody even thinks about ironing anymore. But mother would wash the clothes, she would dry them, and then she would sprinkle them with a little bit of water, roll them up and put them in a hamper. And then in a couple of hours, they would be just damp enough that it was okay to iron them. Huh. If you let them sit there too long, they would get moldy, especially in that humidity.
Right.
Just damp enough, so you needed to iron them when it was right. And I knew that she had some ironing that she was going to want me to do. And I went over to the friends, and I thought I heard her calling me, and I fell off the top of the teeter-totter was up on my side, and I fell off and I broke my arm. And it broke both bones.
Was that with Mike? You mentioned somebody named Mike.
Oh, he was just a tease. I mean, he was a bully.
So he wasn't on the teeter-totter.
He wasn't. No, it was another girl on the
teeter. Okay.
He wasn't there. And I knew I had broken my arm, and I went home holding my arm, and mother took one look and said, "Your arm is broken. We got to get you to the hospital." And I said, "But I'll still be able to play the violin, right?" It was my left arm, so I couldn't hold the violin.
Right.
Well, I would have held it with my left arm. And went to the hospital, and remembered them pulling on my arm, but I think they had given me something so I wouldn't feel the pain very much. And going home with that cast, and the doctor it was just before school got out. So I didn't get to play the violin for the rest of the school year. And the doctor told me I couldn't go swimming. So, because I had a cast.
Right.
So I would hold my arm above my head. We would go to the lake with the Jensens, and we would go to the Graham's house and have homemade peach ice cream. And they had a lake in the back of their yard, and everything was about being out in the water.
Right.
And so pretty soon my cast was starting to fall apart. But when I would go to the doctor, Mom thought that my arm should have healed. And he kept saying, no, she still needs a cast. And I don't know what their argument was, but Mother got to the point where she refused to go with me to the doctor.
Oh.
Because she was mad at him. And so Dad would take me to this doctor. Let's see, he had done surgery on Groucho Marx, who was a popular.
Yeah, I know who Groucho Marx is.
Yeah, on TV. Anyway, so he thought he was pretty smart. And I think that's one of the reasons Mother got mad, because he was so cocky about it and wouldn't listen to her. And that made her mad. So Dad would take me to the doctor, drop me off, and then I would wait forever and ever for him to come back and get me, because he was busy doing his stuff. And sometimes I felt like he actually forgot me.
It certainly might have happened.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's another story. So one day when I was there, I heard the doctor talking to someone and just saying she's not getting enough calcium. And that's why it's not healing. Well, I knew that there was calcium in milk. I don't know why I knew that, but I did know it.
Okay.
And maybe he said something about me needing more milk, but it was summer and milk wasn't very cold.
Right.
At that time. And I didn't like warm milk, and I wasn't drinking milk. And so I decided I had to drink more milk. And so I drank more milk. And I think eventually we took the cast off. Mother just got tired of the game, and we just took the cast off ourselves. But yes, that was when the guy running the radio, the radio X-ray machine would stand there. I would stand there, nothing to cover either one of us up at all.
Right.
And I went so many times, and it was all summer long.
Wow.
And so I got a good dose.
Yeah.
Another reason for the possibility of thyroid problems.
Well, I'm glad you're still alive and you're doing okay. I mean, absolutely. I don't know it's been like to have your thyroid challenges, but you're still with us, so that's good.
Well, here. Yes.
And you're how old, Nancy? You're 70
74.
So you're 14 I just barely turned 60, so you're 14 years older than me.
Yep. 16 years older than Loretta.
There's 15 years between my oldest and my youngest. Between Peter and Amber, Peter was 15 years old when Amber was born. Oh yeah, I'm just trying to put things in perspective.
Yeah. It makes a difference in how you grow up in those relationships with your siblings. When,
right.
If Kamillia and Marcielle had stayed home a few more years and gone to college and come home and gone to, we would have known each other differently than we do now.
Right.
Yeah. It would have been very different, for sure. No doubt about it. When we lived in South Carolina, the chapel had what they called a crying room or whatever. So if you went upstairs and went to the back, there was a big window and you could hear and see what was going on in the sacrament meeting, but you could have a crying child and
Mhm.
nobody would hear it.
Right.
And as little kids, I and my friends loved to beg our parents to let us take our little brothers and sisters out so that we could take them up there.
Right.
So one Sunday, I took Chad out and I had Mary Donna, my really good friend, with me, and Jimmy was there. And we went up there, but then we decided to go outside and walk around where we were not supposed to be. And Chad fell down the stairs,
Oh,
the cement stairs that we were walking up and down in front of the church, and cut his lip and was crying and bleeding. And I had to go get mom. I don't remember mother and dad getting mad at me, but I do remember thinking I wasn't supposed to be there. And
mhm.
that wasn't what I was supposed to do. And I was embarrassed that I got caught doing something I wasn't supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I think after that, mom decided if kids needed to go out, it was her job, not me. When we lived there, I remember dad must have been on the high council because we went and visited other wards where he spoke.
Oh,
I remember going to one, there were beer cans. It wasn't in a church, it was in a building, the top of a building. And they had to go in and sweep the floors, get rid of the beer cans, and set up the chairs before they could have the meeting. So
wow.
it was a little branch. In my memory, it seems like it was like Spartanburg or someplace like that, but I don't know for sure.
Terry said he remembers going to Rock Hill, South Carolina with dad when dad was on the high council.
Oh, that could have been.
And I was in Rock Hill on my mission.
Oh, really?
Well, just outside of Rock Hill, but I went into Rock Hill all the time. I thought, wow, how crazy is that my dad was on came here when he was on the high council, and I'm coming to the same place as a missionary. Anyway.
And that could have been where I was or where we were. And it was the whole family went. So he might have just taken Terry sometimes, and he might have taken the whole family. But I remember that, and I remember sitting in church and people talking about how boring it was to have a high councilman speak. I didn't understand what it meant to be a high councilman. I didn't understand the whole idea, but I knew that my dad was going to speak. And dad gave this talk, and I listened to it. And I remember everybody being really pleased. And I thought I had a pretty smart dad because he didn't put everybody to sleep.
Yeah, dad would not have been a boring high councilman speaker.
No, he would not. He would not. So South Carolina's where Chad let the brakes off of the car and it rolled down towards the Grahams Lake in their backyard when we were there one time. I think it was a tree that stopped it from going into the lake. And the Grahams had a beautiful home on a lake and just a beautiful place there in Columbia. I remember Terry and Lily and everybody excited about them being boyfriend and girlfriend. And her sister, I think, kind of liked Bruce. I don't know if it wasn't Brita, it was the other sister. And I don't remember her name. There were a lot of people with the last name Graham and Bones. There were people in our ward whose last names were Bones, and that they all seemed to be the really prominent common names in that area to me as a kid.
Right.
That's how I felt. We moved in the middle of the winter again, right after my birthday, when I must have been 12. We moved to North Carolina. and we moved into a little house right downtown North Carolina, Greensboro. And
And so
rented.
was did dad switch employers, or did they just move him to a different location, or do you know?
I'm sorry, did dad do what now?
So when you moved, did dad get a new, did he now have a different employer, or did the same employer just move him to a different location? Whoever he was working for with Rich Plan or whatever it was. Or do you know?
Oh, I forgot. Well, I don't know. I forgot when we lived on Suber Street in South Carolina, Dad had started his idea of the hui stick.
Right.
And he went, was it the Darlington 500? He went to the races.
I thought we said it was Daytona Beach.
It might have been. It was a race.
Yeah.
There were cars racing. And
okay. And they went around the track 500 times.
right. And I got to go. And I know Terry went. I can't remember if Bruce went or not. I don't know why I got to go, unless because I was small and I knew how to do the hui stick, that Dad had me standing at his booth during the day. At night, I can remember one night I slept in the car, or I stayed in the car, and Mother kept checking on me because she was so afraid some drunk would come along and see me there.
Oh.
And take me. She was not happy with Dad about that, about having me there in my memory. But I do remember people were drunk and being at the races with Dad at that time. And again, I don't know why he had me go. Maybe because Afton and I didn't get along and she was the babysitter. I don't remember for sure. And South Carolina was when somebody broke in, and everybody's already told that story.
Right.
The guy breaking in.
So you didn't get along with Afton when she was your babysitter?
I don't really remember not getting along with, well, no, that's when it started. That's when she met WJ. And that's when
in South Carolina.
In South Carolina. No, that was North Carolina. That was North Carolina. They lived in North Carolina, not South Carolina. No.
Oh.
She hadn't met WJ yet. It was when she became a teenager, and she just, and that was North Carolina. That's when it became more difficult.
Okay.
So anyway, we moved to North Carolina, to Greensboro. We were in this old house close to town. There was a place where I could take violin lessons just around the corner, which I did, and went to school, and it was predominantly Jewish.
Oh, really?
And the kids that we walked to school with, we heard that they had wine in their thermoses, in their lunch boxes. But I don't know if that was true or not. But they did have traditional Jewish food. And so got there, and again, it was in the middle of the year. And my teacher scared me to death. She was young and she was loud, and she was very strict. And I don't know if I've already shared this or not. She assigned me to be the classroom reporter. I didn't know what that meant.
Okay.
I had never been in a class where you had a classroom reporter. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, and nobody told me. Nobody explained anything about it. And I came to school one day and she asked me if I had my report. I didn't have anything. And she raked me over the coals in front of the whole class that I didn't have anything. I didn't know anybody's names. I didn't know anything. And
did you ever figure out what she wanted you to do?
Well, she wanted me to write a report about things that were happening in the class, but I didn't know their names. it was, she really scared me. That was the first time, other than kindergarten, that school was not pleasant for
Hmm.
me at all. And if I felt a little bit bad, I would try to convince mom to not let me go to keep me home. So I
Oh,
didn't go to school because I was so afraid of her and of what she would say or do. And then I was playing the violin. We had a concert and other things going on. And she asked, and those at that time, they were in the middle of the day. They were not in the evening, but the parents were invited. And she asked me to say the opening prayer and to read a scripture
this is at school.
at school.
Okay.
And so I went home and told Dad, and he helped me find a scripture.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about Jewish people other than that there were a lot of Jewish kids in our school, but I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So she wanted to see the scripture I had. It was in the New Testament, and she went ballistic.
Oh,
Was so mad. You want all the parents to take their kids out of this school? You read this, we won't have any kids left in this school, because there were so many kids that were Jewish.
right.
And I was just totally lost. She said, you go down to the librarian and ask her to help you find a scripture. So I went to the librarian, and that's when I first learned that Jews didn't believe in Christ,
Right.
and that they didn't believe in the New Testament, and that I could not use anything in the New Testament. And so she helped me find a scripture, but I was supposed to say the prayer. I did
Right.
not know how to pray without using the name of Jesus Christ.
Right. Right.
So I said my prayer in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. I was not on her good side. So we finished that school year, and we moved in town we moved to Sourwood. And I went to the 5th grade on Sourwood.
Now,
So it was
Sourwood was in Greensboro, but I get mixed up because sometimes people say a town name and sometimes people say a street name when I'm listening to you guys talk about things.
Sourwood was in Greensboro.
That was in Greensboro, not at Colfax or one of the other places.
It was in Greensboro.
Okay. All right.
So, and that first house was in Greensboro, downtown somewhere. And
right.
I don't know where. I remember that it was an old house. It had an attic, and Jaye and I were sure that we would find hidden treasures in there. I don't remember what. It seems like we found a radio or something in the house. And I do remember that when we left, we had to paint and scrub and clean, because Mother was determined that that house was going to be in better condition than when she moved there. She didn't want anybody to complain about her big family coming in and destroying their house.
Right.
So we painted and cleaned. Then we moved on Sourwood, and that was a fun place to live. That was a fun neighborhood. 5th grade, I kind of loved my teacher. She was kind of interesting because I didn't always have the kind of coat that she thought I should have. So she was often putting her sweater on me, which was embarrassing.
Oh.
Or giving me something to keep me warm. And I got to sing in a special choir in that school. And I really enjoyed that. That was fun. Had to try out for it. And then it was fun to be in that choir. And that was the house where everybody was in our house. We had one neighbor, I'm sure, 8 o'clock in the morning, she kicked the kids out of the house and said, don't you come back till noon. I don't know if that's what she told them, but They were knocking on the door at 8 o'clock, and mother would say they can't play until at least 10 o'clock or when they have their chores finished.
I
That was,
remember mom saying that when I was a kid.
yeah, we had to have our chores finished. It had to be 10 o'clock. And they would just be outside until we got our chores done and got out. And there were a lot of woods behind us. We went back there and we built forts. We raced through those woods. There was a radio station not far, and they had a little corral, and there was a pony. And on the radio, if you listened to the radio, if you got the right answers or did the right thing, you would win that pony. And Jaye and I had that pony named. We were sure we would win it. We wanted that pony so bad. Now that I know more about ponies, if I want a horse, I don't want a pony. They're not very nice. But yeah, we just built a lot of forts. They were building a new elementary school, and that must have been the one Annette went to, because she didn't go. I went to General Green School, and she went to a different school in elementary school. But they were building this new school, and there was like a bag, part of a bag of cement just sitting around. And we asked the workers, are you going to use this cement? And no, we said, can we have it? So we took, it was like a quarter of a bag of cement.
Okay.
We had our bikes and we carried it home, and we went to the backyard and started digging holes because we were going to build a swimming pool. Oh, that soil was as hard as rocks. At least it was for us. It was pretty tough. Although mother sent Bruce out there, there was a little shed, and she sent him out there to dig so that she could plant a vegetable garden. And that's when we found the baby copperheads back there. There was a little nest of baby copperheads.
Yeah.
And Bruce had to kill them all, and mother was so nervous because she knew the mom had to be around somewhere.
Right.
And she was so afraid that one of us would get bit by that copperhead. And then another area of the woods, there was a little pond, and I think Jaye or somebody was talking about that, or Afton. And Bruce would go down and he would go fishing. And we would follow him down, and in the spring, the baby turtles would be coming out, and we would be catching baby turtles and just having a great time around that pond. And there was a little deck that went out on the pond, and Bruce would tell us all to be really, really quiet so we wouldn't scare the fish away. And we would stand there or sit there and just wait and watch and wait. And he was, shh, shh, be quiet. And he would get a bite, and all of a sudden he'd be yelling, I've got a bite. He'd be jumping up and down on the deck. I don't know how many fish he caught, but at least one. And it was fun. And in the winter, that pond would freeze over, and it wasn't very deep. I'm sure it wasn't very deep, but it would freeze over. And we had some neighbors that had a steep driveway, and we would go down their driveway, across the road, and down and curve around through the woods and down to that pond. And sometimes we'd go all the way across the pond on our sleds.
Cool.
And it was a lot of fun. And Bruce would build little bonfires for us. And I don't think we ever had any marshmallows, but somebody must have brought some marshmallows out there for us to roast. And we would be out there playing in that snow. And it was really unusual for Greensboro to get that much snow.
Oh, really?
And when it was one time, the snow was melting, and Jaye and I would go out there and try to shovel it back on the road so they could cancel school.
So you often say Jaye and I, so you and Jaye often did stuff together, sounds like.
Yeah, there was a time that he started getting unhappy with me. He got off the bus and had challenged some boy for a fight. And I said, Jaye, if you do that, I'm going to tell mom. don't you
Oh,
drop mom. He would got so mad at me. I'm gonna get got mom. And it wasn't that far from our house. Mom. And he was just furious with me. And he started telling me I could not play football with them because I wasn't a boy.
and this, you were about how old at this point?
11, 12,
Okay.
maybe 12. And I couldn't, there was a basketball hoop on this, there was a garage with a carport thing over it. And there was a basketball hoop up there. And so we played basketball for hours. But when the other boys in the neighborhood would come, then he didn't want me to play with them. And I remember one time we were racing up the hill, and he said I couldn't run as fast as he and his friends because they were boys. And I told him, I'm a girl, and someday I'm going to run in the Olympics. I didn't know what the Olympics were, but I'd heard that. And I'm going to win, and I'm going to show you I can run faster than you. He had a crush on a little girl up the road. Her last name was Pruitt. They were the Pruitts that he had a crush on. And so when they did drain that pond, in which they did do, Jaye found a ring that's a garnet, has a garnet stone in it. That's my birthstone. And he brought it home. He was all excited. He was going to give that to his old friend. I wish I could remember her name, but I can't. Anyway, and Mother said, no, you're not. And I ended up with that ring. I still have that ring.
Really?
And I've taken it to a jeweler, and he says it's not, not the best quality stone,
Right.
but it's the garnet, and it has come out of the setting, and I just haven't had it put back in its setting.
Oh.
We had a little gal that lived up a couple of houses from us that was a friend of mine, and she, her parents owned the bowling alley, and life was tough for her. And I would invite her to go with us to church, and her mother's dad was a preacher.
Oh.
Only if your grandpa will let you go, you can go. But there were a couple of times that she managed to go, and she really liked it, and she wanted to go. And she would often want me to spend the night with her. And one night I was at her house and had spent the night, and her parents were talking with another couple and they were drunk.
Oh.
My mother would have died if she had known that I was there with a bunch of drunk people. And they were talking about the fact that her parents were probably going to get a divorce. And she was in the bed next to me just crying.
Oh.
It sounded like they were even thinking of swapping couples.
Yeah.
It was just really a weird thing. And she had a little brother, and it was really hard for her. She just wanted to be at our house. She wanted to go to church with us. And her mom, well, ask Grandpa. He was probably a Baptist minister, and you know how well
Right.
that goes over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was a family that lived up the road, and sometimes I guess I was helping to watch their kids for a little while she did work in the house or something. And she knew that we were LDS, and she wanted to know what we believed. So I repeated all the articles of faith for her.
Okay, good.
And she was just shocked that I knew that much about our church. But, I don't know if it ever went any further than that or not. And when we lived in North Carolina, in Greensboro, and I did turn 12 there, and Alden was born, and everybody loved Alden and his beautiful blonde curls, and he was a fun little baby. But Afton was old enough to get her patriarchal blessing, and we had to drive a ways away to the patriarch. We were a district, we were not a stake.
Right.
So So mom and dad decided I should get mine too, which really made me nervous because I really didn't know what it was about. I didn't know if the patriarch was going to ask me things that I didn't know the answers to. I was pretty nervous about it, and never did feel like I was really ready to get my patriarchal blessing at 12. But anyway, so Afton and Afton had to have her tonsils taken out when we lived in Dishman. And since she had her tonsils taken out, we might as well get Nancy's taken out. So I had mine taken out too.
Wow.
I think we all were getting sore throats and everybody was blaming it on tonsillitis.
Right.
We all have tonsillitis. I don't think Jaye ever got his taken out. I don't know.
I don't think I ever had mine taken out,
Yeah.
as far as I know. Hey, hang on. My swamp cooler behind me is blowing and it doesn't need to be at. Just give me 15 seconds to go turn it off. Okay, I'm back.
And when Afton had her tonsils taken out, she reacted to the medication and she was delirious for days, for a lot of
Oh.
days. She did not do well with the medication. It was not a good thing for her. I don't see they're in Spokane or that was in South Carolina. Anyway, we both had our tonsils taken out just because. And we both had our patriarchal blessings the same time because. And let's see, North Carolina is where she met WJ. And so WJ would call her a lot. And there was a little closet underneath the stairs going upstairs. And there was a long cord on the phone. So she would take that phone and go in there. And that's where the dirty clothes hamper was, and sit in the dirty clothes hamper and talk to WJ for hours. And so again, Jaye and I would climb the stairs until we could hear what she was saying. And then we would tease her and harass her and tell her how silly she was. And one time, I don't know if she was playing a game with us or not, but she got off the phone and was in a chair and had fallen. It was a reclining kind of a chair, and supposedly had fallen asleep and started talking about WJ. And Jaye, I think especially, thought it was great to ask her questions while she was asleep and to tell her things while she was asleep. And it was all very silly and very stupid. And we laughed and laughed. But then she started getting mad supposedly in her dream and in her talking. It seems like Jaye hit her on the head with something.
Wouldn't be surprised.
But that's when Afton and I really didn't get along very well. And she would just make me so furious. And I do remember, it's embarrassing now to think about it. She was at the bottom of the stairs and I threw shoes at her because I was so mad.
Wow.
And I know I was having a hard time, and that was between 12 and 13. And mom and dad used to say, well, we'll sure be glad when we have our sweet Nancy back again. Our sweet Nanny Gay. But anyway, it was an interesting time. But it was also when not long after that my hair started falling out.
Oh.
Previously, I had a very thick head of very curly hair. And I remember as a little girl, Marcielle and Kamillia, mother asking them to comb my hair or brush my hair. And I just had a lot of tangles in my hair and I would cry. Mother, when my hair was wet, mother, you know what a rat tail comb is?
Oh, I should. I'm not thinking of it though.
Comb with a long stem on it.
Okay.
So anyway, she would take it and comb my hair and then wrap my hair around the stem of the comb and then pull it out, and there would be a ringlet there, and the ringlets would stay. And then then I'd have ringlets for church.
Okay.
And I remember people playing with my hair, and it was so blonde, and it was so curly, and so long, and so thick. But when I was about 13, it just fell out in clumps.
Wow.
And so I think the doctors knew there was something wrong with my thyroid, but at that time, I don't think there was really anything that people knew to do. And it was just kind of a no man's land as far as medicine went. And at that time, that's when your thyroid is bothering you, your arms and your legs feel heavy, and
Oh.
it's just hard to move. It's almost, you feel like you must be lazy. And I think it made a difference in my ability to concentrate and to think also. But anyway, that was going on. And Afton, to me, it was, she and WJ were just, I was so critical of her and WJ, and she did not appreciate it. I did go out to WJ's farm to help babysit his little brother, who was probably about 10 years old, but was not any bigger than 4 or 5 months.
Oh, really?
He had some kind of he was a twin. His twin was dead. They said petrified. He was like stone or something. Anyway, and his dad would yell at those kids. They were lazy, good for nothing kids. They needed to get out. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. He was screaming and yelling at everybody. It was not a real comfortable place. So I don't think life was very happy for him and he and Afton. And that's when she would be doing things, and then all of a sudden she would be so mad, and it was like, where did this come from? I don't, we just didn't understand what was going on in her head.
Right.
We moved out to Colfax and lived in a little house that had been there, 130 years or something. I don't remember. It's a house where some people lived, who joined the church, and mobs came to chase away the missionaries, and the men would hide back in the woods, and the women and the children, they felt like they wouldn't do anything to the women and children. And at that time, they asked me to be the secretary of the Sunday school. But
So you were how old when you moved to Colfax?
13, going on 14. I did a lot of babysitting when we lived in North Carolina. I bought a lot of my own clothes. I babysat for a family that lived out by a lake. He worked for the radio station, and she was a ballerina. And when we moved out to Colfax, they would drive all the way from their little house, not far from Greensboro, all the way to Colfax to pick me up to come and spend a couple of days taking care of their kids.
Oh, really? So it wasn't like for an evening, it would be a few days.
Yeah. And then there was another family that I babysat for that a lot. And they took me to Myrtle Beach with them one summer.
Wow.
To help entertain their kids and watch their kids while they partied at night or did whatever they wanted to do.
That
was the first time I ever rode on a roller coaster. And I was sitting next to the guy that I babysat for, and I think he was deaf after that because I screamed. It looked like that roller coaster was just going to fly out into the ocean. Screamed so hard. It was incredible. And then I remember them arguing on the way home. People didn't use credit cards and things like that so much. And I don't know if anybody had them at all. So she wanted to be able to do more things. And he said, we've spent all the money we have. And it was interesting. So anyway, let's see. And I forgot about Christmas in South Carolina, Silver Street, the year that Dad sold everything he won. And he gave Bruce or Terry an onyx ring. He gave somebody else a watch. Afton got a pair of her high heel shoes. I got a doll. I don't remember what anybody else got, but most of it came because Dad sold. He was always winning prizes for being an outstanding salesman, but then he would turn around and sell them to other people. We moved from, I can't remember what else happened in Colfax. We moved from Colfax right around my birthday, right after Christmas, to Maryland.
Somewhere in there I was born.
You were born, you lived on Rankin Road. I forgot about Rankin Road. That's where we all had the mumps and stayed home from school. That's where we went to, goodness, yeah, there's a whole bunch I left out. We went to a school.
So again, you were 14 or so when I was born.
Well, no, I must have been 13 when you were born.
Well, you're 74 and I'm 60.
Yeah. You were born in May and I was born in January.
Yeah. So you had to be 14 when I was born.
Yeah. I just remember you coming home and you were early because Mother had prayed that you would come because she was so tired and exhausted. And you came early and your skin was all wrinkly and you still had that little baby fuzz on your whole body. And your hair was very red. It was auburn and it was curly. And that's where I remember Mother trying to nurse you, but you know, everybody was telling her she didn't have enough milk, it wasn't nutritious enough. So she gave you canned milk with corn syrup.
And somehow I survived.
Well, you survived. And when we lived on Rankin Road, what was the name of the school that we went to? I think it was Rankin. It was a high school, middle school, and an elementary school. It was a country school. It was Rankin School. I think that's what it was called. And we were supposed to write a parody from a poem or something that we found. And so I chose The Highwayman. How I wish I had that today. And I went home and told Dad about it, and he sat down with me and we wrote a modern day highwayman with a motorcycle and a leather jacket and all this stuff, and how he came riding into town, and I laughed and Dad laughed, and he would come up with an idea and I'd come up with an idea, and we just had so much fun with that poem, that story. And then I was supposed to read it in class, and I started laughing so hard I could not read it. Somebody had to read it for me. I don't have a copy of it. I would love to have a copy of that. That was fun. And that's where Uncle Lanny came to visit us. He had a little tiny camera and he took pictures, and he put a recorder behind the couch. And at dinner time, he recorded us and he would get us laughing and being silly. And I think especially Jaye and I, we were at that age. And then afterwards he would play it for us, and we laughed and laughed and laughed. It was so funny. And at that time, Dad was having the missionaries come over for breakfast a lot. And and teaching them how to memorize scriptures. And so we had the missionaries there a lot at our house, and the missionaries would go get kids and bring them to our backyard and teach them the lessons and try to get them, their parents to let them get baptized. And I think they put a stop to that, but that was one of the things that they were doing, trying to find converts and share the gospel with them. And Rankin Road was an interesting experience. That school was an interesting experience. There was a boy, Billy. What was his last name? There was a girl in the class. Her name was Benji because her dad wanted to have a boy and he didn't get a boy, so he named her Benji. And she and Billy were quote unquote girlfriend and boyfriend. But we had a class party that I went to, and it was at night, and they played spin the bottle. And if the bottle landed on you, whoever spun the bottle, you were supposed to go into this other little room and that person would kiss you.
Oh, and so you're about
Billy,
14 something years old now.
yeah. And Billy spun the bottle and it landed on me, and he and I had a crush on each other, and he teased me a lot. And I went back there in that room and I told him no. He says, I won't kiss you unless you let me. And I said, no, not going to do it. Not going to do it. And you could hear everybody out there in the room, go, 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 you know, kiss her, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't let him kiss me. And everybody thought I was a prude.
Good thing you are a prude.
Anyway, he didn't live very far from us, and Jaye and I would go for walks. Jaye would put money on the railroad tracks to see if it would derail the train or if the train would squish the dime or the penny or whatever. He had a paper route. And Billy was related to another friend of mine. Her name was Nancy Jo Peel, and she was in our ward. She didn't go to the same school I went to, and she didn't live very close to me, but they were cousins. And Billy's brother had a beautiful singing voice, and he knew about the tabernacle choir. And his dream was to be able to sing in the tabernacle choir.
Okay.
But his family did not like that the Peels joined the church and did not like Mormons. They were set against Mormons. I've often wondered if his brother managed to join the church, you know, and get that chance in the tabernacle choir. And so we would walk down to the railroad tracks, and all of us would meet and laugh and joke and be silly together when we lived on Rankin Road. And then I had another friend, her name was Nancy also. And she was Nazarene. And she invited me to go to a revival. And Mother said I could go as long as it didn't interrupt with my church meetings, that it would be good for me to go and see what it's like. It was just down the street from our house. We could actually hear things going on at that church from our house.
Okay.
We joke about how silly it was. But I went, and the minister stood in the front. We were all supposed to kneel at our benches, the minister at our pews, and the minister stood at the front calling people to come up and repent and to accept Jesus. And the organist would play the organ, and it would get louder and louder and louder, and the minister would get louder and louder. And then suddenly someone would jump up and go running to the front, fall at the foot of the minister. I'm saved, I'm saved. My friend Nancy was just sitting there giggling. She thought it was very silly. Her mother was very, very serious about it. But it was just a good experience to see how different it
Yeah.
was from one church to the other.
Yeah.
And much more comfortable I was with my own church versus.
Yeah. I visited a few of those churches on my mission.
Yeah.
Very, very, well, quite a culture shock, actually. It's like, it's like, what the no? They really, this isn't a script. I thought they just did this in movies or something. This is real.
Nancy's family was very poor, poorer than we were. They still had an outhouse, although a lot of people in that area still had outhouses.
Right.
That wasn't that unusual. And her mother didn't make pumpkin pie, but she made a pumpkin kind of a pudding, and it was good. And I don't remember anything else that she made. And she was a very nice lady, but she was very much into her church and her
Right.
religion. So it was just kind of an interesting experience with her and to go to that school. And then when we moved out in Colfax, I went to a new high school, and yeah, it was, I think it was his first year, and it was what they called a consolidated high school. So it was kids from a lot of different communities that came together to go to this one school.
Okay.
And my friends sang in the choir, and I sang in the choir, and they weren't members of the church, but we really had a lot of fun together. And I was on a tumbling team, and we performed at a basketball game, and that was fun. And then we were all going to go out for the basketball team. In fact, we had. And I had saved my babysitting money, and I bought myself a pair of high top tennis shoes so I could play basketball. And I saved my money, and I bought me a red pleated skirt and a red blazer. And I just felt like I was in, because that was the in thing to have. And but then I was losing my hair, so that was scary for me. And then just before basketball season, we moved to Maryland. I got to go to some practices, but I never got to be on the team.
So somebody in Colfax area, when I was there on my mission, and people, found out that I was from the same Compton family. I don't remember any name specifically, but somebody that had invited us over and pulled out their high school yearbook and showed me pictures of you in their high school yearbook, or some school yearbook anyway.
Well, probably was that book, probably that high school.
Yeah, I remember specifically it was pictures of you. I think Bruce, but I know for sure in one of the school yearbooks, there was somebody who was showing me a picture of you. I wish I remembered the name, but yeah. I actually wasn't. I was only in Colfax for 1 month on my mission.
Bruce was a school bus driver. The high school kids drove the school buses.
Right.
That's when he was dating Pam Wagoner. I don't remember how much he talked about that.
I do. He did mention that.
Yeah, and he would bring Pam to our house on his dates, and I just thought she was the most wonderful person in the world. And we would run out of gas all the time. It was just to run out of gas because Dad never put gas in the car. And we were going to Mutual, and we ran out of gas, so we needed to go down to the gas station, and it was dark. And Bruce and Pamela sang and danced down the street. Oh, I just thought it was so fun, and I just adored her. And they sang those songs like "Hush, Hush, Whisper, Who Dares." Christopher Robin is saying, have you ever heard that? Saying his prayer.
I don't recognize that one.
And "Sweet Violets." You heard that? Right?
Yeah.
Other songs like that. And as a young girl, and she sang alto, and I think that's when I first really started learning to sing parts, was sitting next to her at church.
Okay.
And she would sing alto, and I would try to sing with her, and that was fun. there were a lot of good memories there, for sure.
Good.
And no, so Bruce did, I remember Bruce driving a moving truck, but I can't remember if it was from South Carolina to North Carolina or North Carolina to Maryland, because he wasn't in Maryland.
Well, so Bruce is 20 years older than me. So when he was, I'm guessing he left on a mission when he was 19. So when you were 13, he would have left on a mission.
Yeah, I think he was gone.
And so again, I figured out we're 20-year gap. So when you were 14, he was 20, and I was just being born.
Yeah. Well,
And
he just turned 80 in March, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just turned 80 and I just turned 60.
So he's 6 years older. Yep. Well, and we moved to, we may not be able to do all this. I'm talking too long. We moved to Maryland and we moved on to Philadelphia Drive in Tacoma, Maryland. And I went to Tacoma Junior High School. And
were you 15 at this point?
I guess I thought I had just turned 14, but maybe I had just turned 15. And I did go to junior high for a while in North Carolina. It was before we moved out on Colfax. That was a pretty scary experience. Anyway, yeah, Tacoma Junior High School, and everything was so different. The culture, the people, the academics, it was just really, really different.
Yeah.
Difficult adjustment for sure. But Vicki Johnson just lived down around the corner. She became my friend, and they were in our ward. And then Jan Benson didn't live very far from us, and he would pick me up for seminary, and I'd never heard of seminary before. I did go to girls' camp once when we lived in North Carolina. And so when we lived on Philadelphia Drive, that's when when we lived in South Carolina, it snowed. Dad was the only person in the neighborhood that went to work. When we lived in North Carolina and we got all that snow, Dad was the only person in the neighborhood who went to work.
Wow.
How to drive in the snow. So we were pretty proud of Dad because he knew how to do stuff nobody else knew.
But I do have to say, driving in the snow is different in the East than it is in the West.
It is. It is.
It's not quite the same. But anyway, I hear what you're saying, because yeah. I remember that back at East when it would snow, everybody would just stop. Nothing was happening.
So we had a snowstorm there it was a blizzard. People were stuck in their offices in Washington, D.C. and couldn't get out. So Philadelphia Drive, where we were, it was a hill. It wasn't a steep hill, but it was a hill. And Jaye and I stood out there and watched people slipping and sliding and swerving and having a terrible time just getting up that little hill.
Right.
That way. And we knew our dad could handle it. We didn't know why they could. Our dad could. I don't know where Dad was at the time. That's when Mother started listening to a public radio station that had, what would you call it? Not classical music.
Okay.
We enjoyed listening to, and I remember her doing that and listening to that music. But we didn't live in that house for very long. And then we moved out on Columbia Pike, which was still part of Silver Spring. And It was an old farmhouse. The barn was starting to fall down. And there was still a hole on the back porch where the original well had been.
Right.
For the people to get their water out of the well with a bucket.
So I'm gonna, hang on a second. I want to look at a photo, and because I hear the word Old Columbia Pike a lot. Let me pull up a photo and you tell me if this is Old Columbia Pike. Is that okay? I'm gonna do a screen share. And let's go to, let's see. I was looking at these photos again today, trying to sort through them. It is so tricky to try to figure out some of these old photos. Anyway, hang on, I've got this in the way. Photos. I'm just gonna go to timeline 19.
Before we moved to Old Columbia Pike, one day you front door without any clothes on.
I went out the front door without any clothes on.
Yeah, you were naked and everybody was screaming at you and trying to catch you. That's Old Columbia Pike.
So this is Old Columbia Pike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm gonna write that on here. Old Columbia Pike, and that's the name of the road.
That's the name of the road. 1300 Old Columbia Pike, I believe.
1300 Old Columbia Pike Road, Silver, and that's in Silver Spring.
And actually, it was a main highway. It was an old highway, you know. It was probably a highway from 17 something. I don't know. Anyway.
But it was in Silver Spring, Maryland, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
Okay.
When we lived in Colfax, we had a girls volleyball team for our ward, and we played awards. I loved, and I was the expert server. I could just put it in the right place. It was so fun, and I loved it. So when we moved to Maryland, I tried to get Sister Marriott to let us have a girls volleyball team. Now, there's too many things for everybody to do around here. We don't have time for a volleyball team. I was crushed. But anyway.
So this is also Old Columbia Pike. Is that the same house?
I think so. It looks like it. That's Old Columbia Pike.
And there's you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pike is P-I-K-E, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Just trying to put things in perspective. Seems like there was another photo I had a question about, but I don't know where it is. Anyway, okay. All right. Well, cool. That just helps me put some things in perspective. Oh, Spencerville. That was the question I had. Was there a Spencerville Lane Road or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, okay. Oh, I didn't click share. Hang on. I'm going to do the screen share real quick.
It seems like the community was Spencerville. It was Spencerville, Maryland.
So is Spencerville a, okay, let's see here. Where are the photos that I'm thinking of? There should be a photo. I thought right around here. Okay, this photo.
Okay, I froze again.
Oh, can you see this photo?
Yep, that's in Spencerville.
So Spencerville is the city rather than a road?
Well, it wasn't really a city. Seems like it was called Spencerville, Maryland, though, but it seems like that was the name of the road. I would have to go back and look through my stuff and see if I can find a letter or an envelope.
Okay. All right.
It was Spencerville. It was Spencerville Lane. It was Spencerville Lane.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Because that was where we lived when I cut my arm.
Yes, that's the door that you went through.
Yes, that's for whatever reason, this little table, that window, and this door is etched in my memory forever. I remember running right by that table. Mom was sitting right here. I don't remember who else was. Other people were at the table, and that was the door where that nearly killed me. Oh, I did not mean to hit that button. And there was another picture of that, of Mom going back to visit it another time, but I don't see it. But hey, while we're here, we'll look at your wedding photo. So we're jumping ahead from age 14 to, how old were you when you got married? 20?
21 and a half.
21 and a half.
Yep.
So
When I turned 21, Mom and Dad, I was at school, and Mom and Dad had a cake delivered to our house. And Dennis and Jaye just would not leave me alone because I was an old maid.
because you were 21 and not married? Well, there you go.
The way it is.
And you've got a great family. Anyway, okay, we'll come back to, so yeah, we've gone for 2 hours. Maybe we should take a break, but we're leaving you at around age 15. So, but let's take a break for now, and we can reconnect on Thursday or next week or sometime, and you can fill in the remaining gap. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's fine. This is long.
Well, that's okay. There's a lot to tell, and it's good to get it all down. I wouldn't want you to skip or leave anything out, so that's all right.
Okie doke.
So, okay. And I will, again, I'll put this on a YouTube and send you the link, and you can send it to your kids. And yeah, so I'll text you, and we'll reconnect sometime soon and finish this up.
Okie doke.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.